Hello engineers, in this video we will examine how we can use Azure Batch Service in order to run instant batch processing jobs on Azure Cloud. If you enjoy the content I create and you want to support me for free, press the like button and subscribe on my channel. Azure Batch can be a great tool for instant batch processing as it creates and manages a pool of compute nodes, install applications that you want to run inside these nodes, and schedule jobs ad hoc for them in order to execute. Then you can kill those nodes and only use the infrastructure components that you want for a certain period of time. For this demonstration, I have created a repository which is named sample batch and is hosted on GitHub. This repository contains a .NET application which you can find inside the sample batch folder, and this .NET application, the only thing that does is to bring a hello world message. This hello world message apart from the message and also an argument that we provided in the command line. So when we run our application, we just give an argument in the input and then we get a hello world message for this argument that we provided. This .NET application can be built into a microservice using the Docker file that is provided on the GitHub repository. So we use the .NET Runtime 7 for the Docker image that we built, and then we specify our application and also how the build will be done. So when you use this Docker file, you can go and build this microservice which will print a hello world message in the output, and then we will use the microservice in order to run it as a batch service. In your case, this microservice could be a batch processing tool that you want to run and simultaneously run job across multiple agent machines. You could do that by using the Azure Batch Service, as we will examine later on. So I have already downloaded the project inside my IDE, which is Visual Studio Code, and we can now go and build this container image in order to upload it in our container registry. So inside our project, we should press docker build, and then we should provide a tag for the image that we create as the output. The image should be named according with our container registry. So as a first task, we will go and create our container image that will host our microservice. So inside Azure, I will go and create a new container registry and I will place it inside a resource group that I have already created. So I will go and give a name for this container registry that I will create, and also select the location on which I want this to be created and also the SKU. For our needs right now, we will need only the standard and not the premium version of the container registry. So then I will go and select the connectivity which will be public, as the standard version cannot provide you a private access for this container registry. And also the encryption is disabled because you don't use the premium SKU. Then I don't need tags and I will only press create for this container registry. So the container registry that is created will be named with my name and then azure.cr.io. So we will need to create our image according this naming scheme. So we will provide an image name as the one that is shown right now. So we will first need to place the name of the container registry and then provide the name for the image that we want to build. So for example, let's say sample batch. And then we can provide also a tag. If we don't provide a tag, a latest will be provided alone. So we will go now and execute the build command, but the error indicates that I don't have Docker started. So I will go ahead and open Docker for my machine in order to build the image. After starting Docker, I can then go and execute my build, and by getting the output, we will see that an image is being created. In the meantime, we can go and check our container registry, which is created in our Azure subscription, and check the repositories. In the repositories, the images that you push are stored. So we go now again in our command line and we wait for the image to be created. Then, in order to build our image inside our container registry, we will need to execute an AZ login to log in our subscription in order to get the credentials so that we can push on the container registry. So after we log in the subscription, we can go then and use the docker push command. By executing and docker image ls, we can verify that we have the image created. So I will go then and execute docker push, and then I will just put the name of the image. If you get an authentication error as stated here, the unauthorized authentication required, you will need to go and log in on your container registry. You can do that by pressing AZ ACR login and then the name of the registry. Then you can go back and push your image in your container registry, and you can see the image is pushed, and now you can go back on your container registry and check the image that is being pushed inside the repository. When the push is ready, you can then refresh your container registry and verify that the image is inside your container registry. You can now go and create our batch service that will use this container registry in order to run jobs using our container microservice. So we will go and create a new batch service and store it inside the same resource group, and we will just give a name for our batch service. I will try to give the username that I always use, and then we will go and just leave the defaults on our creation of our batch account. So we will use the batch service and the identity type to none. Then we can have it as public as the default indicates, and we will press the review create for this batch service. When the deployment for your batch account is complete, you can go and create your pools. This is the infrastructure components that will execute the jobs that you create inside your batch service. So we will navigate to pools and press the add button in order to create a new pool. Here in the pool, we will select, for example, custom container image as the name, and then we will press the same as the display name. So the important thing in the Azure Batch Service in order to use a custom container image that you created is that you should select the marketplace as image type, and then you should go and select the Microsoft Azure Batch. The next thing you should select would be, for example, Ubuntu Server Container, and for the SKU we can use the one that is predefined. But the important thing is that you must use the container configuration button that appears here, and you should select custom. So when you press the custom, you should go and select container registries. Here, as you can see, we don't have one specified right now, but we will go and create a new container registry. You can input a public container registry that you have created, but for now, we will go in our container registry, and inside the access keys, we will enable the admin user. This is enabled in order to be able to interact with this container registry. So we will go and select the username and the password that appears inside the container registry and place them in the configuration. So the registry name would be, for example, my name, and the password would be the one that we selected from Azure. And then we should only need to specify the exact login server, which is the zeralexyard.azure.cr.io. In your case, you will have to input your public container registry. For example, it could be a Docker Hub container registry, so you will need to put this as input here. So we press OK for the configuration of our container registry, and then we just select this container registry. As you can see, one container registry is selected, and we can now go and press OK by leaving the most of the configurations as the default. The only thing that we will need to change would be the target dedicated node. So for example, I would select here 2 nodes for this pool, and also I will select the VM size for these pools that we will create. the pools will be the infrastructure components that will run your jobs. So I selected as target dedicated nodes 2, so I will have 2 nodes that are always available to run jobs. So I could run 2 jobs simultaneously using this configuration. We can also select auto scaling and other things for that, and also we could select another SKU. For now, the 2 vCPUs and 2 GB of memory for our infrastructure component is pretty enough for our container that only does a hello world message. Then we can also select a virtual network, for example, for this particular notebook that we create, but I will leave the batch manage for now as I don't have specific network requirements. So when I press OK, we will see that our custom container image pool is being created, as we can see from the message resizing in the allocation state. So this pool is now ready to go and grab some jobs from the jobs panel. So we will need to just create our jobs and specify what we need to execute. So for example, I will go and create one job that I will name job 1, and I will go and specify the only pool that I have available, which is the custom container image. So I will create the job 1, and inside the job I will go and create the task which I need to execute. So I will go and select task, and then I will provide a name and also a username for this task. As we specified in the beginning of the video, the microservice application that we created just print a hello world message using the input that we provide. So we can go here and provide a name, for example, Gerasimos, as the command line that we want to instruct for this container to have. Then we will need to go and specify here the image name that we want to be executed when this task is running. So we will go back in our container registry and just take the name of our container image, which will be the one that is shown here. So we will go and get the image name, and then we can specify some options for the running of the container. In my case, in order to run the container correctly, I must specify the work dir for this container, which will be up. By having all the pieces put together, we can now go and submit our job for the pool to run. So we press submit, and our task is created inside our job. So this is one task that is created, and as you can see, is active and is preparing to run on our pool on which the job is hosted. So in a high level view, we have the pools which run the jobs, and the jobs contain tasks. So this task will run in the first available agent that will be found inside our pool. So if the pool, which in my case contains 2 nodes, run some jobs at the current moment, then our task will wait until this pool is ready to take some jobs. So as you can see from the pools, we have 2 dedicated nodes ready and steady in order to run our jobs. We will navigate now to our task, and we will see the execution of the task. So by running a refresh, we can see that we have successfully run our task, and we have a failed completed status. This failed completed status is because the batch service cannot use the ACR pool in order to get the image and use it in the execution. We will need to provide permissions in our container registry for ACR pool for the batch service. So we will need first to go in the batch service and enable the manage identity system assigned, and after that we will need to go in our container registry and create a new role assignment. We will do that by going in access control and then adding a new role assignment with the ACR pool as the permission. So this ACR pool permission, which can be found here, should be provided with a managed identity on our batch account that we created earlier. We should select that and assign this permission on our batch service. As you can see, the role is ACR pool, and we assign this inside our batch account. When we assign this permission, then our batch account can pull images from our container registry. So we can go and create a new task with this new alteration that we provided, and again we will provide an input for our container. So the name and description will be the same, and we will only provide the work dir as the app for our container run options. Then we will need to go in our container registry and just grab the name of the image that we have created and provide it as an input of the image name. Then we can submit this task to be executed, and we need to verify that the execution at this time is success. If we check the execution, we can notice that again the task is failed because of the container invalid setting. By pressing this pane, we can view the exact task failure information, and you can see that container settings and the work dir that is provided is false. This is true because we must provide the ---- input before the work dir instruction. So we will go again and create a new task, which we will name task 4, and we will now provide the correct syntax for this work dir that we specify in our container run options. Then we will provide the input name for our task, and we will execute again our container image. By pressing the task, we will wait the execution to be completed on the available nodes that are idle and wait for tasks to execute. By having all the pieces put together, we can now execute our instant jobs inside our batch account, and we can get an overview of our execution and also statistics about the failed task, the task states, and the node states which we have in our pool.